and welcome to this special program. I'm your host Nadim, and we're coming to you from Ningbo, the host city of the China CEEC Expo, China and Central and Eastern European Countries Expo. So this event is in its 4th edition, and this year we have participation from a wider number of countries. We have the 14 CEE countries, and on top of that we have 9 countries from across Europe, the UK, France, Spain, Austria, and the event isn't just about trade and business deals, it's also about tourism, travel, people-to-people exchanges, and culture. Eventually, it is about connectivity and connections, and this is what we're going to talk about today with our 3 guests. I will let them introduce themselves. Tesh, why don't we start with you?
Perfect. My name is Teshkow Sharif, Chinese name Li Cailai. I've lived in China for over 12 years now, 3 of those years in Ningbo, and I'm the creative director for an educational company.
Max, what about you?
Hello, my name is Maksymilian Szabatin. I'm from Poland. This is actually my first time in Ningbo. I came especially for the expo. I'm a master's degree student at Fudan in Shanghai, and I'm living in China for 1 year, but I've been in love in China and all of the cities I've been to so far.
Hi, this is Shen Shiwei, CGTN digital reporter and also a commentator on the China's cooperation with the Central and Eastern Cooperation, and especially in this particular in Ningbo, we focus on those projects and also the investment part.
Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to be with me. I want to start with you because of all 4 of us, you're the Ningbo local.
That's
it's
right.
our first time here. Sell us Ningbo.
Okay, what can I say about Ningbo? So let's talk micro first.
Sure.
Within the community where we live, Ningchen community, we have a great neighborhood. The people here are amazing. They connect well with everyone. So for example, Ningchen community itself has a talent community, an international one, where it encourages international people to come here and build their own passions and try to enhance Ningbo itself. So on top of that, we have a fast-paced life.
That's what I like.
A fast-paced life. I know you like it, that's why I'm saying it. But in moderation. So if you look at somewhere like Shanghai or Beijing, that's extremely fast. I couldn't survive somewhere there.
Well, never say never.
It's too fast for me. So I do like a bigger city because I do have children. I have 3 children. So having a bigger city for my children to be able to go to the zoo, to be able to enjoy different cultures, different environments, this is a great city. It's not so fast where I can't spend time with my kids, where it's always the rat race that we have in the UK. So for me, having places like Dongqian Lake to go to just sit at a cafe, it reminds me very much of my trip to Turkey, to Istanbul, where you're sitting by the Bosphorus River, Bosphorus Lake, and eating and drinking. So for me, this is the perfect place to live.
So what you're saying is that Ningbo brings the best of both worlds, you know, the fast-paced one, but also a bit of slow lifestyle.
That's right. So business doesn't stop here.
Okay.
But it does take a rest sometimes.
Okay.
And business can take many forms here, whether it's just drinking tea together, enjoying a moment together, but still conducting businesses.
You know, that sounds like a nice idea. So, you know, who knows how the tables turn and whether Beijing is in my future, but maybe Ningbo is in the cards for me.
I'll try and drag you here, don't worry.
I'll take your word for it. Max, you said that this is your first time in Ningbo. You're
Yes.
based in Shanghai.
In Shanghai, yes.
What is it about Ningbo that perhaps surprised you? And can you do a bit of comparison between Ningbo and Shanghai?
Yes, now I'm jealous when I hear that. I've came here and yes, of course it's a getaway from me because I had my final exams in Shanghai, so I needed a break. And yeah, it's definitely as you described it. I went to Laowaitan, to the old band, yesterday. And it was super nice, but here in the area of the business center here in Ningbo, it's very much surprising for me that it has a lot of green. It has trees, it has rivers, It's super interesting for me, and that's kind of what I like here. In Shanghai, in some areas, it's rare to find places like this. It's very busy here. My Polish friends, when I met them, they told me that you don't see that many people on the streets. It's not compared to Poland, especially because I'm from Warsaw, from the capital city. It's super busy. It's extremely busy and it's very noisy. So we have a lot of cars. Here, it's quiet. It's great to chill.
It's interesting that you mentioned the old bund of Ningbo because you come from Shanghai,
Yes.
and the bund the name is always related to Shanghai, and I would be the first one to admit that I did not know that Ningbo also had a bun. I went there the first day, and on my way from the hotel to the actual location, I looked it up online, and I didn't put the La Wai Tan, I just put Wai Tan. And then it took me all the way to Shanghai in terms of the map. And I was like, wait, that cannot be right because that's too far. And then someone told me, oh, there's an old bund as well in Ningbo. And I thought it was fascinating because who knew?
Do you know why they call it La Wai Tan?
No, you tell me.
Because it predates the one in Shanghai.
No.
The bund here predates the one in Shanghai, I think, if I'm not mistaken, by about 100 years. So I'm not quite sure about that date, but actually it predates it, and we had the first bund here.
So this is the OG bun.
Exactly. That's the way to look at it.
Okay.
So that's
So
why they
I'm
call
glad
it La
I saw that.
Yeah, they call it La Wai Tan because it is the
So it's
old
differentiated
Wai Tan. Yes.
from. We came on the high-speed railway together because we both worked together, and we came. Is it your first time in Ningbo?
No, it's not my first time. I have traveled here multiple times, and it's quite surprised me, and it's especially about the La Wai Tan because we know from the cultural perspective, Ningbo has a lot of the commercial part with Shanghai. So because of the businessmen, they have a very, very long-term bond, and we know Ningbo is quite famous for doing business with the world, with many countries. For maybe over hundreds of years, and the maritime is quite connected with many countries, especially for the Central and the Eastern European countries. And so that's why Ningbo is a perfect place to host this expo. And during my trip to all these pavilions, I can realize that how strong the economic and trade cooperation, and especially for the cultural part, are connecting the both sides. And also for the investment part, it's not just one-way story. It's about the two sides. It's more like a multinational. A lot of people they come here, they just live here, just like Tesh and Max. They have spent so many years here, and a lot of Chinese people, they are also doing the business there. So it's more like a diversified city to welcome everyone and to connect it with everyone through the air link, through maritime.
I mean, definitely, Max spoke about it, and you mentioned it, Shiwei. The geography of Ningbo is really important, whether it's the port or whether it's the facilities that the port has in terms of connections with, the world. And I think that's one of the reasons why Ningbo was chosen for this expo. Obviously, Shanghai does have a port, but from what I know, Ningbo's port is a lot busier.
I think it's the largest in the world.
Ningbo Zhejiang Port has already ranked the world's largest port in terms of the cargo trade volume.
And for the expo this year and for the 3 years before that, all the products are coming through the port to come to the expo.
And we must remember the Lao Waitan part. You cannot forget that it's Ningbo. It's older. We have to teach you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the port in Ningbo is one of the 5 oldest ports in China.
It's part of that, and we know you from the history perspective, and Ningbo has been the first batch of Chinese cities open to international trade and to the global market, and also during the past decades, and we know that for the Ningbo, they have invested a lot on this port innovation. And also for the businessmen here in Ningbo, we have a Chinese saying called Ningbo Shangbang. That means the business community from Ningbo. They're quite influential, and they have a lot of the top figures. They are also doing the maritime, the shipping, transportation part. So it is the Ningbo's advantages to connect it with the world, through trade, through economic cooperation. So that is why we have La Wai Tan here, and we have Wai Tan in Shanghai. So because of the commercial atmosphere and the commercial culture has a huge influence to Shanghai's business culture also.
And because of that, we have the expo, and because of the expo, we're here.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we connect it.
It's
I'd love to add a cultural element to that too. That connection between Shanghai also exists in art and culture due to that link that you were mentioning. So for example, opera. So opera was, we all know about the Shanghai opera, but even that, a lot of the Ningbo opera, Ningbo Yongju, went to Shanghai and taught Shanghaiese about the Ningbo opera. I mean, I've dabbled my toes in that too. I can sing a bit.
But, well, I mean, a little birdie told me that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've practiced it, and it's something I've tried to study a bit more about, and that's why when you brought that up, it reminded me that actually it's more than just business. Even the cultural and those connections that are made is incredible.
Could you amuse us with something?
I think I could. It's the most challenging thing I've ever done because I've had to learn opera that is in the Ningbo dialect without actually knowing how to speak Ningbo. So I'll try. If I butcher it, I apologize.
It's all right.
I've had some great teachers. So, 青珠不莫切，把莫大心里，随后教也暮色中，你红巾。So that's
Wow.
Ningbo dialect. So, yeah. It took a long time to learn, a long time to master, and I know I'm saying some things wrong, but it's worth.
And for those who don't understand the Ningbo dialect, what was the passage that you said?
I can't tell you that.
Okay, great. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, since we're sharing
It's very
space,
difficult.
one of the things that you and I have in
Yes.
common, other than the fact that we've been living here for a very long time, and here I mean China, I've also practiced Peking opera before.
Nice. Okay.
Yes. I can't.
But I heard, a little birdie told me,
Oh, yes.
that I heard that you did it for a lot longer than me. It was 100 days, right? It was a 100-day challenge?
Yes, I've practiced for 100 days. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences because through that experience, I got to understand one of the very essential traditional arts that is the Chinese opera. And it's a big family of opera, but more specifically the Peking opera. So maybe
Yeah.
you and I can do a show later
We can do a
on.
duet.
We'll speak with the director later on.
I'd
and,
love it.
See if we can both be featured.
I would love to watch that.
Yeah, it's quite
Every
entertaining.
time.
With you
Yes.
fun so much.
Yes.
We will join be the audience.
Let's speak a little bit about the expo. We've been to
Yes.
the expo. The expo, as I said yesterday, you told me that you've been to the expo. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've done at the expo and what was the feeling that you've gotten from your experience there?
Yeah, so as creative director of our company, we do have a booth there. And the booth is really to encourage that cultural exchange between Serbia and China, especially focused on sports, especially tennis and basketball. So we are aiming towards building a cooperation with Serbia to bring expert basketball coaches, champions to Ningbo to train the Ningbo basketball team, and also encourage
For adults.
and children,
And
mostly
children.
youth. So mostly youth, but adults later. And then further to that, we want to encourage inbound and outbound summer camps.
Okay.
So to encourage those from CEEC countries, especially Serbia, to come here and experience the life in China whilst studying basketball, practicing basketball, and also vice versa, sending the Chinese students or Chinese athletes to Serbia to train with champion teams and so on.
And I think it's really important because, as Shiwei mentioned, it's always a two-way street.
Yes.
It's never just one way. How was the reaction for that booth yesterday?
It was incredible. We had some great guests that are there, including some champions. Pop is one of our coaches, for example. He's Serbian, and he's really driving this project. And for a period of time, when we had some performances as well, some cultural performances, the booth was full.
Yeah.
And it was great to see that because I really, in my mind, didn't expect that. I thought buyers would come just to buy, not to experience the culture, which is really impressive for
It's
me.
actually one of the things that I noticed with these trade shows. Trade is in the name, but it's quite much more than just trade. At the expo in Ningbo here, I've seen travel, I've seen fashion, I've seen people are genuinely curious about history. I've attended lectures just on the history of certain countries.
That's right.
And it was quite interesting because you think about it and you think, oh, it's basically matchmaking. Trade shows are about matchmaking, businesses, deals, but it's actually, there's more a human touch to it. And I think this is what you've brought to you were one of the people who brought that culture and that spirit to the expo. Max, tell me about your experience there. This is your first time joining this expo, coming to this expo. So tell me, and I know that Poland also has a sizable booth there. So tell me more about it.
First of all, now you've said about the camps and the tennis. When I was 10 years young, then I've attended some camps, tennis camps in Europe. So the Poland is actually a Slavic country in the Central Eastern Europe. So it's similar to Serbia. So that's super nice to have something like this here because it's just an amazing experience. So props up to you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and about the expo, obviously we have a lot of countries. About the Polish stand, we have 2 Polish stands. We have one official one and we have one chamber. We had the exhibition of Polish bread, which I haven't ate for 1 year, and I was really thinking about that. I didn't know that they will have a Polish bread here, and I was super happy to see that. It was a fresh bread made
nice.
on site during the expo.
How did I miss that?
Me too.
How did I miss that?
There was a Polish guy using the Polish flour doing
Wow.
bread. The Chinese loved that. We had
We
a lot.
missed that part.
And you know, we've been there for 3 days.
For 3 days.
For 3 days, and we missed that.
Maybe I can pull some strings. Maybe I can pull some strings if you
I
want.
sure hope it's never too
Yes,
late.
of
Yeah.
course. For the Polish bread, I think you should try it. Of course, if I have any
When we
opportunity, yes.
Put it on the list.
Yes, of course. We had some other Polish food, and I think food is a big part of culture.
Yeah.
Yesterday I had a dinner here in Ningbo, so we ate local cuisine. We had Zhejiang food and Ningbo food. I've been in Hangzhou as well. I love the Zhejiang food. I think for the foreigners, I mean, especially for Polish people, it's not too spicy, it's not too oily, so it's just perfect for us. So it's the perfect place to come to China to experience the food, the culture, the opera. It's super nice.
Well, this is our tourism pitch for everyone watching.
Yes. Yes, because now we have visa-free
Oh yeah.
with Poland. We
Well-
have 30 days.
We'll talk about this in a bit, but I want to go to Shiwei a little bit. And you've come here with a reporting agenda. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've done in the expo so far? Who did you meet, and what were your impressions from the high-level people that you've spoken to?
Yes, actually, during my coverage at the expo, I have met a lot of friends from the Slovenia and the Slovakia because they are the guest of the honor country for this year's expo, and they have bring a lot of like musicians and also about their high-tech industry because they have the joint ventures here already here in China doing the investment like the electrified aircraft. That is the first time I saw some aircraft was just powered by the batteries,
Yeah.
and it's for the human to drive.
And they've
for the-
exhibited right outside.
yeah,
their
yeah,
booth,
and they also do this kind of for the training, and you can also to apply a certificate through this kind of training. So that is quite amazing part, and also, and as I said, the investment is always the two-way investment. As I talked with the Hungarian Export Promotion Agency, the officials from the Hungary booth. And they just told us there are a lot of investment from China to Europe part, and like countries like Hungary and other European countries are quite welcoming this kind of investment because it is not only about the job creation but also about the high tech part. Because like for the electrical vehicles and also for the battery investments, those investments have just boost all the supply chains part, and also for vice versa, a lot of investment from European countries come to China to seek the big opportunities. So I see a vibrant cooperation between China and the Central Eastern European countries at the pavilions.
I think that you mentioned high tech, and for the first year, this edition of the expo, they featured digital and intelligence zone. And this speaks to where China is going and where China is headed, the priority of China, because, you know, in the past few months, we've seen DeepSeek coming out. We've seen
like robotics.
We've seen EVs as well. And all of these are on display, not far away from the Polish booth, actually, on the second floor of the expo. And so it's interesting to see that the expo itself is expanding to more industries, and with focus, because Zhejiang is such an innovation hub, a lot of these companies like Unitree, Alibaba, DC,
They're in Zhejiang.
they're in Zhejiang. And so it's interesting to see how they're riding the wave of this high tech, and they're bringing that to the expo, so people, you know, from the CE countries as well as the Chinese companies sort of meet up and see what potential deals or what potential partnerships they could have together. Max, because you're from Poland and you're studying here, you mentioned before food and how food is an important part in culture, but food is also an important part of trade between Poland and China.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? And can you also tell me what other areas of trade you could see happening between your country and China?
Yes, of course. Yeah, food is a big part of Poland and of China, of course.
Yeah.
We have a great poultry in Poland. We had some agreements on export to China, which is thankfully going on, thanks to our president and to President Xi, Polish President Duda as well. But most importantly, we have the dairy products, which Poland is very famous for, especially for milk. And I heard that Chinese people, they love Polish milk, but I would like to see more milk in China from Poland, because I'm so used to Polish products. But recently, we've seen a lot of cooperation, especially in education. I'm the example of that, because I came on the scholarship from the Chinese government, from Poland, which I'm very glad that I can be here. But recently, we've seen a lot of cooperation in the area of renewable energy as well. Poland needs EVs. The Polish society needs EVs, especially with the new requirements from the European Union about the green cities.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they cannot afford the new petrol cars, so we need more EVs, and China is offering the best cars now in the world in the area of electric vehicles.
At an affordable price as well.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So we really believe that we can make the infrastructure in Poland, which is another aspect of EVs, because you can have a lot of EVs, but we need the charging points, we need the replacement parts, so we can actually believe that Poland can be the hub because Poland now is the biggest manufacturer in Europe of car parts. So we believe that we can make the collaboration in this area with China and have great cars, green cities, and more collaboration here.
Last year, Polish president came to China, and
he came to Fudan, but I was not here.
Oh,
yet.
really?
Yes, but he came to Fudan.
Is that why you followed?
Yes.
He came to China, and one of the areas of cooperation was the green industry, the renewable energy, and we know the EU and Europe, there's a decarbonization push happening. The same thing is happening in China as well. China has goals to cut carbon emission. We have the EVs, we have solar panels. And I know that you've authored research papers on China's green push. Can you tell me what lessons you've learned from China's experience so far with green energy, and which ones do you think that could apply to Poland, and vice versa? What could Poland help with the green industry here in China?
First of all, when I came here, I was really amazed how quiet it is. So it's a real privilege to have this cleaner, quiet environment. So it's great for nature, it's great for humans, for everything. But yeah, I've done some research on that, especially on Chinese investment in renewable energy. So the Chinese investment in 2023 in renewable energy was as big as GDP of Switzerland. So it's unheardable. More and more people in Europe, and especially in Poland, are becoming more and more aware of that. We see China as the pioneer in this area, so we would love to learn from China. We actually are seeking the energy security, because it's really important to have different sources of energy. We would love to have the green energy sources in Poland, and we appreciate the Chinese manufacturing of solar panels, of wind turbines. We would love to cooperate in this area. But what China can learn from Poland in this area is that we might use it, we would like to utilize our carbon as well and optimize the usage of carbon and fossil fuels as well, because I think you will agree that we cannot live without the mix. We cannot only rely on renewable energy, we need a mix. So we should collaborate with China in the field of, as well, fossil fuels, to know how to optimize the mining of them and the usage of fossil fuels here.
Yes, and adding to your point about the fossil fuel, because of in the energy part of the Poland, because it's more like a thermal power-driven economy, and that's why for China, Poland Corporation, we have a lot of experience sharing in this part, because how to make towards the zero carbon emission and how to make the thermal power more clean and to more eco-friendly and to have more benefits to people and all the human being and also for the nature. So actually, in terms of the renewable part, one is about in manufacturing. We see a lot of Chinese investments to do the industrial park in Poland to have the solar panels and also other equipment. And also we know that Poland is also a European Union member, and actually China, the cooperation between China and Poland could set a very good example of how to combine the Chinese standard with European standard, and we can find more commonalities and to improve this kind of mechanism to set this kind of cooperation as a specific example for China-European cooperation as a whole. Because now we see for a lot of data has shown China has become the leading country in investments of the renewable energy and the technology. We have a lot of companies. So by having this kind of mechanism for this standard, we can improve together and then we can have more joint cooperation. So that's why you see for latest days, the China and the European Union, we have made certain deals on how to tackle these environmental challenges and how to tackle the climate change by this kind of green technology. And of course, for China and Poland, we have a lot of sharings.
It's not only that, we already love the Chinese EVs. We have the BYD starting selling 2 weeks ago, actually in Poland, in one of the largest Shenzhen in Central Eastern Europe, GD Poland, it's near Warsaw. They started the BYD sales. So I think the future is great for us.
We like to start the kids off young in understanding these concepts. So it's part of our core as an education company to encourage the children to explore those areas. So for example, we take them to the bus manufacturing company that's owned by, I think it's government-owned CEEC. It's owned by the government, but we take them to this factory to experience what it's like to build these EVs and why it's important. So at a very young age, they're introduced to this.
I bet the curriculum, because obviously when I was young, when I was in kindergarten, we didn't have EVs, we didn't have green technology. That was, many moons ago. And it's interesting to see how the curriculums and the points of interest for educators are changing with the times.
So one of our core principles, actually two core principles now, is AI and the learning of renewable energies and so on. So that is part of our core when educating the kids right now, whether it's kindergarten up to high school.
So we can see the kindergarten and business, they are part of a whole.
Yeah, even farm to table, for example. We've invested in farms to take the kids to so they can do their own farming. Yeah, the full supply chain, show them how their food is made naturally without any pesticides, and just it's very important.
It's fascinating that it's not being done in a classroom. It's being done out in the field. It's being done out in the real world, and I think that's
early childhood education. Actually, a lot of research points to the fact that children should not be indoors. They shouldn't be in a closed space. They should be outside exploring and touching.
Having more contact
more interaction with nature.
I've never had that experience before. Maybe I should go to your school.
Absolutely.
Max, Chinese EVs are now being sold in Poland, but they're being sold with, sadly, tariffs, because since last year the EU imposed extra tariffs up to 35% on Chinese EVs. Poland was one of the countries that voted in favor. How do you see the situation?
Unfortunately, especially for me, for the Polish market as well, and because honestly speaking, we don't have much domestic car production. We don't have a Polish brand of the car. There was a plan about that. Maybe there will be the joint venture with Chinese companies, but for now we don't have a domestic brand in Poland. So I don't see a point of protecting the national market in Poland, and we have to go much more higher to the institution of European Union and the political pressure there. But I don't think that we should, outside of the tariffs, the Polish people are still willing to buy the Chinese cars, especially the Chinese EVs. So I don't think the tariffs will be a barrier for them to invest in the clean environment and to make the cooperation with China better, because that's the main part of me, of my colleagues, of my friends, that we would like to go beyond the tariffs, we would like to go beyond the politics, and we would like to focus on the collaboration and making our life easier, because if we have a cheap and great EV in Poland, that would be amazing. Everyone can afford that. Most of the people can afford that, yes. And
there is some resolution happening, or at least glimpses of hope on that front, because recently we've seen good news coming out of potentially conversations and dialogue happening between China and the EU for changing tariffs to a minimum price. Can you tell us more about this, Shiwei?
Yes, actually, recently we have seen some positive progress because after this kind of negotiations and talks, especially about the site visit, because now we see a lot of European politicians and also the delegations, they come to China to see what is happening on this all this industry. And now for China and the EU, we have a temporary conclusion that we could use like the minimum price to meet the needs and the demand from both sides. And that is a win-win situation. How to say it is a win-win situation, because you don't need a tariff, and that will help the local industry, and because the price will be more competitive and more affordable for a lot of consumers. And also it is because of the hard work for both sides. We know a lot of European countries, like especially from the Nordic countries, they have done a lot of cooperation with Chinese companies in EV parts, not only for the private use, but also for the public buses, and to have the more clean and renewable energy in the economy. Because we know for the Nordic countries, they have paid much attention for the environmental part. So that's why from the people and from the public, they would like to use all these vehicles are driven by the clean energy, especially for the EVs parts. So, and also for the most of the Central Eastern European countries like Czech Republic and also Slovakia, and also for the Slovenia and so, like Croatia, and also especially for Hungary, they have attracted a lot of investment from Chinese companies. And those Chinese companies like Catel and also BYD, they build the manufacturing of the power plants, and also for the battery manufacturing. They are not only supplying the batteries to Chinese brand, but also to many European leading brands. So that is how collaboration works, and that is how to say the minimum price replace the previous the more confrontational solution. That is win-win situation. So that will be a better solution for China and European Union to have this kind of EV cooperation.
Right, and I think on that, when it comes to trade and commerce internationally, what China always says is that we all have our differences, and we can, through consultation, through dialogue,
and more open and constructive dialogue,
to overcome this instead of more confrontational ways, unilateral tariffs or any other.
And we have to go outside of the agenda that's been thriving recently in the world. That we have this narration of we will not buy from you, but you have to buy from us. I don't think that's a great approach to this topic. So I think we should pursue the collaboration, as you both said. For example, we would love to have the manufacturing plants in Poland for the Chinese EVs. That would be great, especially in the place that we already have the BYD in GD Poland near Warsaw. But also Poland is one of the leading countries in lithium battery production, so we can collaborate on that. We shouldn't seek the differences between us, between Poland and China, and between all of the European countries and China, but we should seek the things that make us closer to each other. So I think that's really important here.
Well, speaking about making us closer, culture does a wonderful job at this with people-to-people exchanges. You mentioned before, well, both of your countries actually have visa-free travel to China, the UK and Poland. What is the experience like from, let's start with you, Tesh.
If you think about before the visa easement, I guess, not many people across the world knew much about internal China and the cultures within it. So something that I'm working with the teams here is to have various social media platforms where people can learn about the culture, especially in Ningbo right now. So one thing that's happened recently is more international bloggers are coming in.
Yeah.
More people who are YouTube famous or Instagram famous are coming into China freely to be able to show the world what China actually is. And that breaks down those barriers or those walls that, those stereotypical walls, I guess, that exist. So people are seeing a lot that what they saw on Xiaohongshu, for example, during that period of time when TikTok went down, they saw that and they're like, we need to see this. So the easing of the visas was great timing in my perspective, in my view, because it allowed those same people who are interested to come and visit China and see actually it wasn't all fake. It was true, what I'm seeing. So on that level, for culture, it's done amazing things because you're going to see more and more videos about Ningbo, about China in general, out in the world.
Shiwei, it's not just the visa-free policies, it's not the relaxation of, for example, or the introduction of transit visas. People crossing through China can stay for up to now 240 hours, 10 days in China, but there's also, we're seeing increased air connectivity. How do you think this is all playing out for China when it comes to changing perception?
Seeing is believing, 眼见为实. So actually, not only for the visa-free policy, but also because of more direct flights between China and the rest of the world. We see for the past months, we see a lot of new airlines to connect Chinese cities with multiple countries, and not only for the visa-free to the European countries, but also to China's neighbors, like in southern Chinese provinces. They're also open to the citizens from Southeast Asia. So actually that has helped people to know the dynamics development of China. Because previously when I was working and living in the Gulf region and in many African countries, even just a few months I come back to China and to Beijing, to Shanghai, to other places, I can feel how the changes is happening so fast. Even for Chinese, I can realize that as one. So when during the past months, when I meet some people who just came to China just a few months ago, and when they come back, they already feel the changes.
Yeah.
So that's why for the visa-free policy now we have granted to expand this policy to more countries. Just like in the few weeks ago, China started to grant more visa-free policies to more Latin American countries, and this policy will continue to expand. So that is reflect how this visa-free policy has helped people to have a better understanding about what is China and the true picture about China. And now we see on the YouTube channel, on TikTok, we see a lot of people, they just share the real picture of China. So that is the positive part, to have a more mutual understanding.
And I think it's a smart move, and also it's a confident move from China, because instead of China being on the defense, for example, and saying, oh, no, it's not what they're saying, or oh, no, it's not this, it's not that, they're letting the people talk. They're letting the people coming to China.
Actually, I think
doing the talking.
more opening is more internationalized is in Chinese people's DNA. Like around 1,400 years ago, during the Tang Dynasty, China is much more openized to the world, to the more countries, and more internationalized. Like the capital city at that time, the Chang'an, now is Xi'an, and also for the maritime ports like Ningbo and other cities, they open trade to everyone. And a lot of international friends, they even have the serve as officials, local officials in China's certain agencies. So I think this part has reflected the openness and collaboration, and to have more exchanges. That is in China's DNA, and we would like to have more openness and to have more internationalization part in this regard.
If I can add to that as well, on the ground level, I mean, we've both been here for 12 years, right?
Yeah.
When I first arrived here, it was a culture shock for me, right? Because where if I go to a different country, at least the letters are the same as the letters I'm used to in English. Here, the characters were different. So for me, culturally, it was a complete shock to my system. But actually moving on now, because of this openness and this internationalization, there's a lot of the things that we see, even the writing on the wall, is bilingual now. There's a lot of English and Chinese text. There's a lot of inclusivity for those that live here and those that are traveling here. And I think everything that you said is great. And also, if we can add to that the people on the ground that live here as well, like myself, it's become a lot more accessible to us as well because of this opening up, and it's great to see.
Max, you're the most recent implant of all of us to China. Was there anything that you expected differently, or is there anything that you had in mind that turned out to be not true once you arrived? What was the experience before and after coming to China?
Starting off with the visa-free policy, I haven't had the opportunity to use that.
Yeah.
I had to apply for the student visa as well. But in 3 days, my parents are coming.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
much easier for me and I think for every international student to have their parents come here without needing a visa. So it's a great addition and we are very thankful for that.
Is Ningbo part of the itinerary?
Has to be.
It has to be, yes.
Has
I've
to
been
Get on the list.
Plans.
Yes, yes. I hope that, I think it's a great place. My parents are not expecting the China here. I'm trying to show them a little bit from the pictures and from the stories, so they will not come and have a heart attack because of the level of development here. Because I don't think people are aware in Poland how China is developed and how safe it is and how clean it is. So it's amazing. I've been studying about China for 3 years before coming here, and I was interested in China, so the culture shock was not that big for me. I had some basic Chinese, so I could survive, and especially in Shanghai, it's good to know Chinese, but if you don't know Chinese, it's okay. You have
It's a cosmopolitan
yes,
city, yeah.
yes. But I went to Tokyo recently, and there was no written English, only Japanese alphabet there. So Shanghai and all of the China is really welcoming to all tourists from around the world speaking English. It's really easy to get by. It's really convenient to get by public transport, which is, I think, the best one I've ever been on. So yeah, that surprised me so much, the level of convenience here. I think we can all agree on Waimai, on DD. It's super convenient here.
It's very interesting that you're mentioning this. Yesterday I was speaking at the expo with someone from Serbia, and Tesh can attest to this. When you've lived long enough in China, you stop seeing things with fresh eyes. You know, like everything, you become used to the progress, you become used to the advancement. You know, oh, I have my WeChat, I can pay, I don't need cash. It becomes part of your daily life. You become
Even the translation function, right? Even the translation function that they added to Alipay,
And
even that alone was like, it's a big deal, but for us it's like, okay.
I don't have Alipay. I only use WeChat.
You should use Alipay too. No.
And so it was really interesting to hear him, through his eyes, to see the China that he's seeing. And he was very excited. It was his first time here in Ningbo, and he could not believe the level of development, the level of infrastructure, the level of progress. He was blown away by WeChat. And he was like, we need to bring this back to Serbia. And the fact that, like, oh, people don't have to have cash on their hands. And so it's interesting to hear that. We lived through it, but it's interesting to see it from a different angle, from someone else's eyes. Because really, I don't think twice about it. You know, I don't even have a wallet anymore.
I was saying this to my friend. I was saying this to my friend yesterday. Actually, I was like, you know, the last time I actually saw currency, hard currency, I can't remember.
He said,
I can't remember.
the Serbian version was like, I don't even know what the Chinese currency looks like. Because he did his homework, he downloaded Alipay, downloaded WeChat, and then linked everything. And then when he arrived, it was all set. Because we also have policies, China also have policies to make that transition to digital very seamless, especially for travelers, not just for those who are living here. But you and I, we never.
That's my biggest.
Yeah, when we arrived here back in 2012, we didn't have that. The digital revolution in China started in 2014, and life was completely different.
You know, that's actually one of my biggest wishes, to be able to come here with fresh eyes, just to see what my mother would experience coming here. For me, I'll never get that.
That train has left the station long time ago.
On a high-speed train.
12 years in China, and China works on China speed. What are some of the major elements that changed in your eyes from 2012 to 2025?
I have to say, like, just starting off, the amount of people in China that can actually speak and communicate fluently in English with us has grown exponentially. Maybe it's because of how I started here. I started in a smaller city, but as I've moved and settled here, it's so much easier to communicate with the locals, and it's so much easier for us international people to connect with the culture. If we look technologically, you've mentioned it pretty much all of it. I remember when WeChat was first downloaded on my phone, I remember I was on the subway and my friend said, hey, do you have this thing called WeChat? And it was, at that point, it was just a chat system. Why might, when we first arrived, you had to pay cash.
Or
you
on the
remember?
desktop. I still remember
On the desktop.
On the desktop.
That's it.
Like you would have to open a computer.
I'm so jealous.
The driver would come, I remember the driver would come, knock on the door, and you'd give the driver the cash. And the driver would take the cash. That's how it started. And then slowly the cash system came in and...
Or you would call them up. I remember I would be on campus and I would call up like a pizza delivery and be like, I want this one, because like you had to have the menu, like the actual physical menu.
Oh, you see, I couldn't order because I couldn't speak to them. I couldn't order at that point.
And I was like, I want number 45, for example, and then I'll give them my address. It's a completely different, genuinely it's a completely different word
That's
back
how
then.
revolution works.
Yeah.
This is the convenience.
You don't have to live through this.
Yes, this is the convenience. But I would love to live through this. Maybe I could.
What's the first word you actually learned in Chinese?
It wasn't a word. It was actually a sentence.
What was it?
你叫什么名字? What is your name?
You see, do you know what my one was? 这个.
Oh.
这个 was my first word because when I went to a restaurant, I would say 这个 one.
But,
Yeah.
这个 two.
but you see, you started learning here.
Absolutely, I didn't know any Chinese
You know,
before I
this is
came
the
here.
perennial word that all foreigners have
That's
to
it, that's what I was
learn.
going to ask.
Yeah. Shiwei, you travel a lot outside of China. What are some of the differences that you see in your traveling compared to the convenience digitally that China has compared to other parts of the world?
I think the convenience part is not only happening here in China, actually with the more Chinese investments going abroad, going global. Now we can see a lot of Chinese companies, they are doing the collaboration with the local parts to have this kind of a digital revolution. Just as our friends have said, many people would like to bring this kind of technology to their home countries. For example, in our neighboring country like Japan and South Korea, when Chinese tourists go there, they can also make the tax refund through the digital payments through either through WeChat Pay or Alipay. And even when they do the shopping, for example, my experience in South Korea and Japan, I can just scan the QR codes from the WeChat, and even I can get the discounts from the supermarket because of this kind of Chinese collaboration with the local supermarket giants. And also like in the Gulf countries, now we see a lot of China's tech industries. They would like to bring this kind of digital revolution because now with the AI-powered translation, oral translation, we have a lot of this kind of equipments. For example, around this expo, we see a lot of companies. They are doing this kind of simultaneous translation. The machine, it's very convenient.
Glasses, I saw.
And also
I've seen
for the
it.
glasses. So that is most attractive part. We see a lot of business parts from the Central and Eastern European countries, and also other partners. They were surprised by this kind of technology, and they would like to seek partnership with them and to have more collaboration. So I think that is how technology benefits people in this regard.
Since we all live in China, what's one thing from life in China that you would like to bring back to your home country?
That's a big question.
I could say that.
It's a very hard choice, right?
It's like saying, that's the same question as, what's your favorite kind of movie? Like, what's your favorite
Or
movie? You can't answer
Which of your
that.
favorite 3 kids? Which one I'll take?
Oh, that's
I
a
would
good
for sure say I will give you time to think
Yeah.
because there is
Yeah.
a big gap here.
You're ready. I
Yes.
love how ready you are, man.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm ready because the public transportation here is the best thing I've seen
Okay.
in my
That-
life.
that is a very. I don't think anyone
This
has
is
found.
go up with
that's a
the
great
whole
one.
system, put it in my whole country, because our metro system it's not very developed. We have only a few lines in Poland, 3 lines now, so 2 lines actually. The third one is in development.
Yeah.
So this is the thing I would like to see because it's cheap in China, it's super expensive in UK probably now. So this is the best thing I would like to take out of China. But in the case of the payments, actually Poland is really well developed in the aspect of digital payments and digitalization. We have the great company which is called Blik. This is a Polish company. It has been in Revolut since recently in fintech, and there was a startup in the US who wanted to do the same simplified thing, and we are already like, we done this. So we can see some similarities in China and Poland that we are going the digital way, which can make us closer as well. But the transportation part is not making us any closer, and we would love to have some Chinese help in this part, because you are a specialist in the development of public transportation.
Are you ready, Ted?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I think I've narrowed it down, and it's not going to be an exciting answer, but I've narrowed it down to the affordability of life here.
Okay.
The fact that things are manufactured here, most things are manufactured here, the fact that a lot of the supply chain is cut out makes things a lot more affordable here than when you go abroad. I remember my wife saying to me when she was we went to Haidilao in London, and the prices differed so massively, and we thought, wow, we take for granted how affordable it is for us to live in China and how easy everything is. And I think for me, I'd take that away.
And I think the safety as well, because you have the direct impact here about the product safety.
Yes.
No one tries to lower the cost or something like this. You just get good food. It's not processed as much in Western countries.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, the market control as well, the control that the government has over the market. Regulations, yeah, great.
Speaking about digital payment, there's one thing that in 2014, I still remember crystal clear. When payment started on WeChat, I very clearly remember being at a friend's community, and there was a veggie store with a QR code hanging, just dangling, so you can scan and pay. And that was my first interaction with QR code payment. And I remember clearly telling my friend, who's going to do that? No one's going to do that. People need cash. Cash is king. And fast forward to 2025.
You ate your words.
I regret those words. I didn't know any better. I didn't know.
I think we all felt like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it was just you.
It was so revolutionary, the idea of paying with just a QR code, scanning, linking your bank to your phone, because normally it would be a credit card. It would be a debit card. But never before had I seen that. And it was so futuristic in my 25-year-old mind that I was like, impossible this is going to be popularized. Impossible.
We are still amazed that here in China, I mean, I'm used to that already, but people from Poland, that they are still amazed that you use QR code, because in Poland, in this payment method, you just put the code from your phone, which is changing all the time. And here in China, you just scan it, click it, and it's done. So it's amazing.
There's a much more susceptibility to new technologies here in China because things change so fast. And the robotics is something different, is another example where people are now in China used to robots. You mentioned Haidilao, the famous hot pot chain. They also have like these robot servers that come bring you the food at the hotel where we're staying. Also
yes.
we have. And so when I saw the robots at the expo, I was happy to see so many robots in just one venue. But this is the future, and I think that the perceptions for that in China is more positive towards robotics, because like there's the fear of robots are going to take over. But I think in China, because tech is part and parcel of daily life, and it's changing so fast that people are more susceptible to new elements from tech in their daily life. With this, I want to ask for last words from you before we wrap up. I think we're going over time. Do you have any last words or anything that you'd like to say that you haven't had the chance to say?
I think you've been a great host, and you've allowed us to say everything that we've wanted to say. I just really want to see China continue on this trajectory, and I really want to. I'm excited to see what's on offer in the future.
Well, sounds about right. What about you, Max?
It was a great pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you very much for that. That was a great experience. I'm very glad to be in the center of robotics as well, as you mentioned, because we are in Zhejiang. All of these companies are from Zhejiang, of course. And to be in the center of the world, basically in the aspect of technology in China. So I'm very glad to be here, to have the opportunity from the government and from my school to be allowed to be in China, to study here, to get some experience. It's been a great pleasure, and I wish that the European cooperation with China will develop further in the peaceful, in the very strategic and stabilized way, that we can influence the whole world. How should we collaborate with each other?
Thank you, Max.
I think just one sentence. It is the right time to book a ticket and come to China and to enjoy the real picture of China.
You heard the guy, you heard Shiwei. Thank you all again for being here. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all who've been watching us. I will see you in another program or another live stream. This was all from us. Stay tuned to CGTN, but for now, I will bid you farewell.